All right. Hey, everyone. It's Alexa Linton here. And
Hi, and it's Laura Bird. We're going to
uh,
be together again soon, which is why we're doing this webinar. Alexa's coming back to Australia in like not that long.
really, really short amount of time. Yeah.
yeah,
I
a
leave
very, very
on,
short amount of
I
time.
fly in on the 29th. So, yeah. And I'm so excited.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this time Alexa's going to be teaching some workshops in Canberra on the East Coast, and also here in her home away from home in Perth at my place. And today we wanted to just share a little bit about what it is that Alexa's going to be teaching, because it's a little bit different to what she's shared in the past, and it's going to hopefully like dovetail in with some of the other stuff you're either studying with me or studying elsewhere, or your other modalities and your other systems that you're using. And all of it has a focus on really like powering up your intuition. So that's what Alexa's going to be chatting to us about today.
Yay.
Yeah. If
And
I have to sneak off
yes.
halfway through this webinar, yeah, if I just,
So our planning was a little
yeah,
bit off. Laura,
yeah.
Laura said to me, I have to be off the call by 10:30, and I heard 10:30 works. So then
Yeah.
I booked it for 10:30, and she has a client at 11. So she's going to sneak off, and I'll kind of grab the reins and keep on chatting and such. We'll be
Yeah.
about an hour tonight. I'm going to leave maybe 10 minutes at the end for Q&A. And at any point in the call, if you have a question, just pop it in the chat. So if you go to the bottom of the webinar window, there's a chat box, and you can just pop it in there, and then I will like answer them as I go along. Especially if you're introverted, the chat box works quite well, and you can even send it to me privately. It doesn't have to be for the whole group. So and at the end I'll probably unmute us as well, so if anybody is feeling extroverted, they can speak up at the end and ask questions as well. Yeah. Perfect. So today I wanted to drop in a little bit into applied kinesiology. And this is a tool that I've been using for like 15 years now, specifically with animals and also with people more recently. And Laura as well has used applied kinesiology in various ways with some of the work that she does. And so I felt like when I was coming over, I really wanted to offer something that was of greatest value to all, everybody who's done some of the animal translator program of Laura's, and also my whole horse apprenticeship students, and anybody else who wanted to kind of drop in who's an animal lover and is really just curious about how to connect with their animals, maybe increase their intuition if they're like me and they tend to be pretty doubtful or skeptical, or like have a hard time really trusting the information that's coming. I find that applied kinesiology can be really, really handy for that. Also specificity. So we're going to chat a bit about that, and I'm going to show some examples of how applied kinesiology can tap into some specificity as far as what you're getting and the information that you can receive further on. So that's going to come up tonight too, and I'll show you, especially around things like nutrition, supplementation, that there's this opportunity to get really, really, really fine-tuned in a great and simple way using applied kinesiology. Yeah. Anything to share on that, Laura?
Well, I guess I'm just I assume people kind of know a little bit about what applied kinesiology is, but I think the cool thing about it is that it seems to be a skill set that, especially when we're looking at any kind of non-verbal communication, intuitive communication, which we are all struggling with our animals, whether we're animal owners.
Oh, yeah.
Like just, you know, like just guardians and family members of animals. And we're like looking at them trying to figure out what the fuck they're trying to, oops, it happened.
Yeah, I was waiting for that. That took a while.
It took a while, didn't it?
Yeah.
It's like we're 5 minutes in. You know, when you're looking at your animal.
Minutes.
Yeah.
We had 20 seconds before, so.
I have a hair trigger on my swear gun. Yeah. So yeah, like when we're looking at our animals and we're trying to figure out like what is going on, what's happening, this particular skill set, the applied kinesiology intuitive tool, is valuable for anybody. So if you've just got pets at home, if you've got a busy practice and you are an animal therapist, healer, trainer, whatever it is that you do, I think this tool gives you something that is different and really valuable when you can get it like working for you. And that's really, you know, what Alexia is the master at, is how to get this tool working for you, how to learn it so that it's reliable, and just how you can apply it to explore parts of your intuition that you might otherwise have trouble accessing. So yeah, I guess that's like
a great explanation. Yeah.
That's why I'm excited about hosting you and sharing this class. And I know that over the next hour or so, like people are going to get some ideas about like what this can actually do for them and how it can propel them forward in whatever journey they're on with their animals.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I know that Laura was saying that there's been questions around certain things, especially because I put on the Facebook page that experience is helpful, but it's not necessary. So if you're coming in and you've never done any of this before, you've never done Laura's animal communication work, you know, that's totally fine. It is a little bit handy to have some of that in the background for you, but it's not necessary. So, and the great thing about working in groups is it tends to kind of like lift you up and move you forward in bigger ways than necessarily if you're trying to do this on your own, say through my online course or something like that. So, and even those who have done my online course, this is a much bigger deep dive. So I'll talk about that a little bit later as well. I wanted to do the day long because then we can get into the nitty gritty in the morning, which I'm going to talk about shortly here, and how that looks and kind of what applied kinesiology is for those of you who have never experienced it, and how I use it, what modalities it's used in. And then in the afternoon and onwards, we're going to look at like all the ways that this can be applied, you know, throughout both, you know, just like practical shit at home with your animals. Like, okay, like, you know, I've had something with my dog Riley lately where he has gone off kibble completely. Like he's just like, no, this is not a thing. So I've had to use applied kinesiology to figure out, you know, which meats he can use and like he can have and what's best for him, and like cooked or not cooked, and like how much, and it's been, you know, and what to add in. And so all those things just become a lot easier when you're working with this tool. And I know for us that are horse people, it can be like one of those like, oh, and we'd like go into like a feed store, or, you know, like what do we give them? What's going to work for them? Like, you know, especially
because the struggle is real when you're trying to figure out what to feed your animals and what's like going to work for them and going to be compatible and not going to upset their tummy, and that they're going, you know, that is a real struggle that we all go through, whether we're therapists or animal guardians. And I guess the thing is that you can do a lot of floating around in intuitive land and a lot of guessing, whereas this really streamlines it down. And that's just one example of.
Yeah, for sure. And that's like saved my butt a lot of times, you know, just because you can do things like figure out, you know, oh, this supplement's necessary. And now I can figure out how many times a day and how much, you know, those times of day, and like for how long, and, you know, which supplement of these 12 supplements for vitamin C or whatever is actually the best for my animal or myself. So we can start to actually hone those things. And really,
the way that you screen if you've had to deal with this problem with trying to figure out what to feed an animal, like Yeah,
right?
it's like, hello, yeah, what dose? Oh my God, now I've started feeding them this, and this is, yeah. And
Yeah.
Michelle just put a great comment up here about
Oh,
as
I
a doctor.
know. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I
So,
know. And, there's a uniqueness, right? It's not like, and with our horses too, like, I know for anybody who's got a herd, like my herd, everybody has different stuff, that works for them, right? And Diva's feed changes as we go along, and like depending on what she's needing support with, right? So there can be like additions, or okay, she doesn't need that anymore, and seasonal changes, and all these sorts of things that promote. And I know all of us here are in this space of like, I know I'm there where I'm like, I want them to live as long as possible for as like in the best quality of life. And, something like, we're using nutrition as an example, but, in terms of that can be like a really big piece of the puzzle to, give our animals that best possible chance in life. Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yes. So Taisha says she's got a 35-year-old whose teeth don't work. And yeah. So like what they're going to be feeding and what's going to nourish them is going to be completely different, right? Than a youngster that's got all their teeth and such. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thanks,
so it's
Taisha.
a really practical skill. And for those of you that have been to my workshops, you know that I am all about asking open questions and things where like your imagination and your visions and your feelings, things that are not black and white, all of the gray and all of the color spectrum of like information that we can receive is available to us when we ask an open question. But there's a lot of value to being able to ask a yes no question. And the difficult thing about yeses and nos is they're very definitive, and so often when we ask them of ourselves intuitively, or when we're trying to make a yes no decision about something with our pet, the stakes can be a little bit high.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you guys have like done this, just even trying to make a decision where you'll like flip a coin or something, and you'll be like, okay, heads it's yes, tails it's no, and then you get an answer that you don't like or you're not sure of, so you start to get into like best of three land.
Yeah.
And then if that doesn't go well, it's best of five, and so on and so forth. And so our kind of like our internal feeling of yes and no is something that I think this course that you're teaching, Alexa, will really help people get some clarity around what yes and no really feels like. And if you can't trust your feeling of yes and no, what are some of the tools you can use so that you get a clear yes and no, and then eventually you'll be able to trust your feeling. So it's kind of like a really cool bridge for that, and that's what really excites me about this class.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful, I think, like the combination or the connection between Laura's work too, because with applied kinesiology, the same things apply in terms of neutrality and permissions and listening, and like all these pieces are there. And so like the foundation of that animal translator work is so beautiful, and these things like weave together perfectly. And I know for myself, just to share a little bit about me and why on earth you should trust me to teach you anything.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea.
Right?
Yeah.
So when I actually have a degree in kinesiology, but that's much more the traditional type of kinesiology, studying biomechanics and such. And so when I decided to become an equine sport therapist, I saw on the website, I was like, oh, applied kinesiology. And I thought, I got this dialed. And then I arrived at school and promptly realized that I had no idea what I was in for. And my mind was completely blown. And so for 2 years I studied this work, and my teacher was so funny. He's quite a pioneer, and he would always say, I would ask him a question and he'd be like, muscle test and see. And it was like the most annoying thing that he could possibly say. And so we really used applied kinesiology for everything. Like I'm talking, down to which vertebrae is out of balance, what way is it aligned, like how does it want to be worked with, which muscle is needing attention, which type of massage is needed for that muscle, which pressure point do I need to work with, how is the saddle fitting, what needs to change to help the saddle fit, how is the hoof balance, all these things we worked with through an applied kinesiology lens. And it really opened my mind to see how broad this tool, it could be used in all these different aspects, including nutrition and supplementation, obviously. But, working with flower essences, working with emotions, working with, the energy systems of the body, the physical systems of the body, all these pieces started to show themselves. And really for me, I was the hugest skeptic. I'd been brought up in this very black and white family. Science was everything. And so it was actually quite a torturous process to learn this, because I'd never accessed my intuition that I knew of. Now looking back, I think, yeah, I did. But at the time, it was such a different space to work in. And the horses were really what did it for me, because I didn't want to believe that it was possible. And yet there was all these horses that were getting these results. And I was like, are you kidding me right now? Like, and these crazy things would happen, and I'd get this information that, like, where on earth could I get this information? And, it just blew my mind, what was possible. And so eventually it wore me down, all of these, horses that were like, this stuff works, man. And I was like, okay. And since then, I think about 12 years ago, I started teaching a course in applied kinesiology, which is now my online course, and just sharing this tool because it's just so cool for people and really, really helpful in any sort of situation with our animals or with ourselves. Like, I know going into a health food store, I'm like looking at shelves being completely overwhelmed by what I need. And to be able to actually like check and see is super, super helpful. So that's where I come from in a nutshell with applied kinesiology. I use it literally every day, even still 15 years later, with my clients. And it still works like a hot damn. I really, really enjoy it. Yeah. Anything for you, Laura?
It's just one of those things that once you see that this works and your mind has also been blown, you'll just use it all the time.
Yeah.
And you can use it a little teensy bit and it's super valuable, or you can take it to like...
Can be much more broad.
Yeah.
Across a lot of situations, for sure. Yeah. I know, Laura, that you have to go fairly shortly. So.
Yeah, if I just like wave, if I just blow you a kiss shortly, it's because I'm sneaking off. So yeah. What I do just want to say is, and I'm seeing a lot of familiar faces on the screen. Some of you I know have done workshops with Alexa before. If I have to sneak off, really enjoy her wisdom, ask her all the questions you need, but I love hosting her here because she is she's a masterful animal healer and communicator. She teaches my animal communication over in Canada, so I really trust her with that work, but she is a wealth of knowledge. So, there's other staff. While Alexa and I are quite similar and do very similar work, there's just a whole bunch of other stuff that she knows about and can share with you. And anytime that you study with other teachers or connect with other people that are masterful at what they do, it will take whatever you're doing to the next level. And this is just the perfect class because you know, I know by the time I jump offline, you guys will get a chance to talk more about how to use it practically,
Yeah.
but it really is like a very valuable tool. And I know that if you learn it, you'll use it. It's simple as that. If you learn it, you'll use it. And I'm excited as well that we're going to do some stuff with pendulums this time as well. So other ways of exploring the yeses and nos.
I'm excited about that too. I decided that because after I discovered Afra's work, I decided that doing energy healing, I probably should know something about crystals. I just didn't know anything at all. And I was like, well, that's probably a thing.
We can't all know everything.
Right? And so I actually like work in the cutest crystal store just to like, you know, really, you know, immerse myself in the crystal world. And I still am not very knowledgeable about them, but I have learned more about working with pendulums, which I love because it has so much to do with what we're working with applied kinesiology. And so I have a greater appreciation for crystals for sure. And I think I do know quite a bit more than I did at the beginning, which is great. And Afra, did you get the pendulums?
They're not here yet.
Ooh, sometime soon. Afra's been making pendulums, so they look amazing in the photo. I can't wait to see.
If anyone doesn't know, I have no idea who's online. It feels like a little family. It feels like a family get together because there's so many familiar faces.
Yeah.
And then faces that I've connected with I haven't met yet. Hi, Linda. Afra makes the most beautiful. Afra is my dear friend in New South Wales. She makes the most beautiful crystal.
Laura's wearing a few of them, I think.
I've got one of hers on today, and then a different. Yeah. So she makes amazing crystal healing tools, a lot of amulets, but she's making a collection of pendulums for the Perth class. So, so we'll get to play with it. This is really about exploring yeses and nos. It's figuring out when you ask a question how to get a clear yes and a clear no, which is as valuable as, you know, for us to navigate anything. We need to be able to get yeses and nos, and we also need to be able to get additional information. And between those two things, you've got what you need to really turbocharge your intuition. And all right, I'm gonna love you and leave you guys. But yeah, have fun. Can't wait to watch the rest of it when it's up.
Perfect. Thank you, honey.
No problems. Have fun, everybody. Bye.
All right, everybody. So on that note, I want to get into a little bit more of the nitty gritty because this is some of the stuff you're going to learn. And I obviously don't want to give it all away, but because this is actually like a rather simple tool. The big things that we have to work with are similar to when we're learning animal communication. So things like self-doubt and skepticism and those parts of our lovely little minds that can sometimes get in the way. And so with applied kinesiology, for any of you who haven't experienced it at all, or you may have experienced other types, I tend to begin with what I call the body pendulum exercise. And this is a funny one. I always challenge people to, you know, like do this in the banana aisle of their grocery store or something, just, you know, to really mix things up a little bit, because it's a full body sort of yes and no. So for those of you who haven't seen it before, I'm just going to like do a little demo of it, and you don't have to join me. That's totally fine. You can try this out later. Oh, you're welcome, Laura. Thanks for being on. I hope to see you. Okay, so the body pendulum, this is not very helpful, but webinars. So what you're going to be doing, you can try this later on, is essentially, I say you're in a ballet position. So your feet are like a little bit like this. And what you're going to do is you're going to just give your body some directions. So the directions I always give my body is you're going to sway forward and back, not side to side. And what you're going to do is close your eyes, and you're going to ask your body for a yes, and you're going to see where it goes, and then come back to neutral. And then you ask your body for a no, and you're going to see where it goes. So what happens is each one of us has these yeses, these nos, within us. It's sort of what I would call an innate wisdom within the body. So the body knows what works for it. And oftentimes we think of the yes as like a compatibility response. Like, say I was holding a piece of amazing chocolate. I'm hoping that my body would be like, yes, and, you know, want to go towards it. Sometimes I wonder, though, if it might be like, no. So I don't really check things like that. It's like, if you really love coffee, like, probably don't do this with coffee. You know what I'm saying? But what you're going to do is have this response like, oh, that feels good to my body. That's compatible for my body. And oftentimes when we get the no response, it moves away from that thing. You know, like probably if you put white sugar up to your, you know, thymus gland, or if you held that up, you might go away from that. Your body would say, no, that's not so good for me. Or maybe your cell phone, for example. So when we work with applied kinesiology, we're always working with something called calibration. And that is, like Laura said, the ability to get a very strong yes and a very strong no. And have those things be very distinct. And you can imagine if you don't have that nice strong yes or that nice strong no, things get quite muddied, right? And then we're always questioning, like, was that a yes? Was that a no? What's going on? You want to have that sense of accuracy where it's super, super obvious. This is a yes, this is a no, okay? And that's what we call calibration. Now, you can get that with the body pendulum I just showed. You can get it through, I'll often do the arm testing with the deltoid because it's a good muscle to work with. So if I had a partner, they would press on my arm, and then again, so getting a yes, getting a no. And I can also do self-testing. So this is one that I tend to do. I use my fingers. I have the gap here, and I press against the gap. This is my yes, this is my no. So for everything that I'm testing, I'm always calibrating first. So yes, no, I can do here, yes, no. Some people like this one, yes, no. And all of those things, it's the same thing. Pendulum as well. If I'm doing a pendulum, I would get, you know, yes this way, no this way, or whatever it is for you. Just making sure that it is obvious that this is your yes, this is your no. And then from there on, the world's your oyster. You can work with anything as long as you have that calibration. Does that make sense? Yeah. So, and then from there, what we work with as we go along is how to formulate the statements and questions that create the yeses and nos. So this is a little bit of an outline of what we're going to do in the class, right? So we start with this idea of, okay, like I'm tapping into this innate wisdom that can share with me some information, help me get specific. I get my yeses and nos through the calibration. And then I start to go, okay, what do I want to do? What do I want to ask about? From there, we start to be able to work with these senses of statements. Ooh. Yes, it can change. Yeah, thank you. So someone is asking about the body pendulum, and yes, our calibrations can change. So that's why I say before we start testing it, at any point, I always calibrate. And then I know what my yes is, what my no is. Because otherwise, if it does switch around, because energetically, we're not the same people every day. So we may have a bit of a shift that happens. Great question. And so I always recheck what's my yes, what's my no, and then I know that I'm accurate at that time. Now the same thing applies. Oh, Linda. Yeah. Right. Yes. Yeah, for sure. So Linda says, I find that with pendulums that I'm thinking of the answer I want, it'll move in that direction. And I have to put my yes and no in envelopes so I don't influence the answer. I was just going to get to that. So when Laura chats in her animal translator program, the first step is neutrality. And this can be one of the biggest challenges with applied kinesiology as well. Is neutrality, particularly when we're working on our own animals. Does anybody find that when they're working on their own animals, things get like super like fuzzy and you're like, what was the answer? Our own animals tend to be the hardest as far as neutrality. And I have to say, after 15 years, it's still the case for me. So it is one of those things where we may have to, I'll often work with a partner in that case, or just things to mitigate my bias. Because what happens is I am emotionally attached to the answer, right? And so I want it to be this certain thing or whatnot. There's certain things with your animals that it's not going to be so emotionally attached, like with food, maybe you're like, nah, whatever it is, I'm good with it. But if it's something more serious or something potentially about their emotional state, that can be a little bit of a trickier one. Oh my God, we have some great questions here. Yeah, Gabriel, I'll get to that as well. Yeah, and Alex, I will chat with that. Yes. Yeah, nice one, Kate. I know the emotions can be a really big one. And yeah, oftentimes we're going to get the most accurate results when we're working on other people's animals, because we're stepped back from it. We're not so invested in what the answers are or why. And this is the case for any type of animal communication. I know if any of you have worked with Laura or done other animal communication, it can be that like tricky little place where, you know, you really want something to be the case for your own animals. And neutrality can be hard to find in those spaces. But you know what we work with Laura and with myself, I always ground before I do any applied kinesiology. I always take some nice deep breaths, and remembering as well with applied kinesiology, especially when you're working with animals, is it has to be with permission. So I'll always, right after my calibration, ask permission. Does that make sense? And that's similar for Laura's course as well, where it's like listening, and then we're into like rapport, frequency, permissions. So I ask through applied kinesiology, do I have permission to work with this animal? And sometimes you'll get a no, and that's okay. Kate, like, great question. Yeah, so like you've got to step out of their bubble. Yeah, big time. And you may actually find with applied kinesiology that if you're too close to in their bubble, that they won't give you permission. But if you step back from there, you'll actually get permissions to work. Yeah, good question. So keeping going here, neutrality is very important. And then what we get to is being able to actually start to hone in on what we want to work with. So if you've taken the Animal Translator program and say you've got some information about, let's see, maybe a particular organ, or just you are drawn to your gut for whatever reason. Like, hey, there's something going on in there. I just feel with this animal, like there's something digestive. I'm not sure what it is though, and I'd like more information. This is a great little bridge to working with something like applied kinesiology. And so what you're going to be able to do with applied kinesiology, and what I'm going to teach in the course, is how to hone in even down to which, potentially what organ or structure is calling for attention. So say in this case, it was the large intestine. Yeah. And I can get to the large intestine by using muscle testing or applied kinesiology to hone in on which organ I want to work with or which structure. And then from there, I can actually start to ask that structure what it wants to really feel good again. So that might be, it wants some sort of body work. It wants some sort of nutritional change, especially in the gut. It would like a supplement like probiotics. It would, all these places. And we're going to go through this as we look, work with the course, is looking at something I call priority testing. So where do we need to go with that particular piece that's come up for us, sort of open-ended information? Okay, I'm feeling my gut. Large intestine, we're starting to funnel. Okay, what do I need for that large intestine? How do I know what the priority is for the large intestine? And there might be a few that we can work with. So we'll actually be able to test how many priorities there are for that organ, and then unpack them each as we go along, which is really, really cool. So we'll be able to go, okay, the first one is that probiotics are needed, and this particular brand of probiotics. So we can ask that question, like, going into a yes and no statement. We can just, here's the funnel. So we've got large intestine, probiotics are needed, yes. So we get a yes. This particular brand of probiotic is the best for this horse, yes. So you can go through that way, because nowadays there's lots of probiotics. And then from there, we can look at some big pieces here. So we want to look at how many times a day would that be required? Maybe the time of day that would be most optimal to use that probiotic. And of course, the amount that's required, as well as how long. Like, is this needing to be used for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe forever? So looking at that. We may also then have a second priority that is, there's this emotional piece that's going on. The large intestine is a really important organ for processing emotion. It's very important for release, and the emotion of that is, in Chinese medicine, of the large intestine is grief. So if maybe that horse has had maybe a herd mate that has left or passed, they might be processing or not particularly processing a particular emotion within that organ. Yeah. And of course, with our horses, we don't want to, if we're in horse territory here, we don't want to mess around with the large intestine. We want that to be flowing and moving. So maybe that second priority that we look at is around that emotion. And we could ask, the emotion that is the priority is grief? Yes. Cool. Okay. And then we look at, how do we work with that? So who knows? Maybe the body goes, a flower essence is a priority. Yes. Okay. We can work with that. Then we can hone in on which flower essence, because there are a lot of flower essences. So we can go through and go, is it I think over there's like the bush remedies, and then there's the Bach flowers. Over here, we've got Pacific essences. There's lots of different essences that we can work with. So we hone in on which one, and then go through that list, find the right one, look at how many times a day, how many drops, is it used externally on the body, internally in the body. So these are the kind of specifics that we can start to work with, which I love doing. It's super, super fun. And then say the third priority is, here we've got these, you guys are so talented. Kate has been sending me, well, we have a group Facebook page already for my class in Canberra, and I'm blown away by the skills that these people have. And so these horses that are with us are going to take advantage of that because it's there. So they're going to be like, okay, you over there, I need your help. And so they might say, okay, third thing is one of these people in the group needs to work with me. Because, they why not? So they'll go, okay, and there might be a modality needed. So the question would be, is a modality needed? Yes. Which modality is needed is our next piece. And we'll go through and ask each one. Is it massage? Is it, alignment? Is it Bowen? Is it so on and so forth? And then with applied kinesiology, we'll get a yes on the one that it is. And then from there, we can ask even which person in the group might be able to offer that up, or would the animal want to work with. And that makes it really, really cool. Like, I just love this piece because the animals in the group start to really resource who's there. And I'm super excited, both in Perth and Canberra classes, for all of the amazing pooling of resources that's coming together to work with horses and animals of all nature. So that might be our third priority. And at the end, we can come back and ask, as after we've finished all those things, is there anything else that the large intestine needs? Yes or no, right? And it can, then anything else that's the priority that day can really come up and show itself. I often think about this work as a sleuthing. So it's like putting my sleuth hat on and just starting to unravel and look behind all these areas and really find these, what's needed. There's always, I find, an answer, even if it is not fully obvious at that time. So one thing you may find is that as you're going along and starting to use this work, your animals start to teach you things. They'll start to point you to certain books or, go, oh, I need a massage, but it needs to look like this. And I once had this with the horse where I was massaging their neck and they're like, not like that. And I'm like, well, what? Like, is it like this massage or this massage? They're like, no. It's a special massage for me, one that you've never done before. So I kept asking. I would go like, is it like more like this? And then I'd ask yes or no. And they'd be like, closer, but not quite. And so I just kept doing it until I finally got that massage technique that was really what they wanted. That was hitting the nail on the head. And they just said, yep, that's it. And then I went ahead and did that. And all of a sudden they're yawning and licking and chewing and like releasing. And I'm like, okay, I got it. I hit the nail on the head. And that's the great thing about our animals, right? Is they're giving us constant feedback on this stuff and letting us know when we're on the right track. Yeah. Sorry, Kate. I wanted to go back over your question. I found that when I let go of the outcome, says that, and set a clear intention with love, there's less fuzziness. Yeah, totally. That's beautiful. And just coming into the heart, I think, we do this in Laura's classes as well, is connecting that rapport frequency. And Kate also says, I think I always had a stronger attachment to the outcome of my own animals, so there must be incredible pressure on them. Yeah, totally. I do the same with my guys too. It's a hard one to get neutral with our own friends. But I do find that this can be a great tool that way. Yeah. Oh, good question, Linda. I think with animals, Linda asks, when you say that the animals give feedback or say yes and no, would that be their higher self giving you that feedback without their conscious mind being involved? That's a great question. I think with animals, they're so much more in tune with sort of their what do we call it, innate self, their inner wisdom. I think with humans, we tend to get a bit more into our heads and a bit more up here and fussy. With animals, they're very in their body. So I would say this is a body wisdom that comes through. And even when they're showing feedback of like releasing and licking and chewing and relaxing, that also is a confirmation of we're going in the right direction. And so it's a little bit of both. And when we're working with animals, initially, what I do is like playing telephone. So I'll have someone having their hand on the animal and their other arm is out, and then their partner will test on that arm. So it's like playing telephone all the way through. And so what's really interesting is you'll often get a very different calibration for the human, which you calibrate first, yes and no. And then when you put your hand on the animal, the calibration feels incredibly different, which I've always found really fascinating. So every being has a very different feel in the calibration process in the yes and no. And so, oh yeah, Michelle, I'll get to that in just a sec. Yeah, and so that's really neat too, and you can actually feel the difference between the animal and the person quite distinctly. which is, yeah, never ceases to amaze me. So Michelle asks, some other courses I've been doing describe humans as meaning-making machines and not always in a constructive way. Yes, very, very true. I think I often say that, returning to our animal nature is actually quite a healthy thing in many ways, because it means being more body-centered and more connected. And I love applied kinesiology for that, because it does connect us more into our body and into that felt sense, as Laura talked about, the idea of really connecting to the felt sense of yes and no in our system. And now when I do applied kinesiology, I don't actually have to test anymore. Generally, I can feel it in my body, because there's a specific feeling that comes up. And so I'll do my sessions now completely from that felt sense, and then I'll check in when I need to, using applied kinesiology, but it's kind of like built into my system, which I love. I really, really love that. Yeah, and yeah, exactly, Michelle, being more present in the moment and present in our bodies. I don't think we can go wrong being more in that space, and having tools in our world that cultivate more of that physical body awareness. And this is one of them. I find animal communication is one of those ones for me as well, because it really puts me back into my center, because I have to be, to receive the information that's coming through, because it's in the subtle senses, and that requires that sense of centeredness and grounding and really feeling the information coming in. Yeah, just want to look at my list here before we get to questions and make sure that I'm hitting all the marks. If you have any questions, please pop them in the box, or I am going to unmute you in a little bit here, and so we can chat a little bit. Let's see. I did write a list of things. I think we're getting there. Yeah, this tool, I've seen it used in all sorts of different modalities, and I would love to hear from you what modalities you've seen it in as well. I've seen it in chiropractics. I've seen it in, homeopathy, naturopathy, all these different places. And it's used in different ways for sure. But I think the essence is always the same in terms of getting that calibration and really tuning into what the body needs and wants. And I found for my own animals and my clients, to be heard and listened to in that way is really powerful for them. And I still miss things as well. I often will do, I have a good network of people, and that's something I recommend, is having a network of people that you can work with on this. And even now I have to do a little session on my cat, because he's got some things going on. So that's sort of on my list for tonight. We've been in a little bit of a tiff, me and my cat. So we're having to, work together on figuring out what's going on. And in my sort of being a little bit mad at him, I've overlooked the fact that there might be stuff going on for him that he would help with. Because how he shows me that stuff is going on sometimes is by acting kind of like an asshole. So I've overlooked a little bit, and was pointed out today. So tonight I will be going in and just working with him on what he needs support with, and doing priority testing and seeing, where I need to work with him, and what might be helpful for him moving forward, which was a very helpful feedback from a friend. Again, that neutrality piece was slightly lacking for me there. And it happens. So I admit, I'm the first one to admit I'm very human. And even in the courses that I am doing in Australia, I want to just share that, I'm there being a student as well. Yes, I'm facilitating and helping to, impart this particular skill and things, but in many ways I'm going to be learning a lot as well from each one of you, and that's really how I like to do it. I feel like I never like being put on a pedestal because I'm totally going to fall off. So I like being, on the level, enjoying ourselves, having fun, working with what comes up, and acknowledging that there might be resistance and there might be self-doubt. There probably will be. And there might be some bumps along the road, and that we'll all be, navigating that together, and that's relevant within the group setting, that there's going to be other people that are running into their own stuff that's probably similar to what you're working with as well. Coming back around to that, if you're a total beginner to this stuff, I invite you to come. Like, you're gonna learn something for sure, and you're probably gonna blow yourself away a little bit. Especially working with this stuff, you just never know what's going to come up, and it's a great bridge to starting working with energy medicine with your animals, because it's simple to learn, and this is as a venue is going to be a really supportive environment to work with. If you are in Canada, which is where I'm from, I hope to put one of these on in the spring. So I just want to let you know that that is in the works as well, because people have been asking a little bit. Yeah. All right. So does anybody have any questions at all? I'm going to unmute you. So if anybody's doing anything crazy, just quiet her down. All right. We'll see if we're all introverts here, or if not, got any questions. Does anybody have any questions at all? All right. No?
Sorry.
Nothing?
Yeah, I do.
Yay! Who's that?
Michelle.
Oh,
No, I'm
hi,
not gonna be
Michelle.
into it. I guess my question is a little bit around, so we talked about animals to connect with, but sometimes I'm wondering if other people have that experience where you've actually been involved in an animal's life for a very long time, but something's quite traumatic's happened, and it's not that you feel disconnected, but there isn't as much emotion around it as I was expecting there to be, basically. And I'm kind of like, okay, is that because I'm not being in tune with the moment, or that I just happen to be in a different space for this particular animal?
I was going to say, that's more what it feels like, Michelle, is I know for myself, it depends what role I'm taking in that scenario, like for certain animals, I'm very much there to hold a space, and really be, I'm not going to say detached, it's not that, but like see the bigger picture of what's going on. And in those cases, I'm weird, like I often sort of blow myself away with how still and centered I can stay, and neutral. Yeah.
No, that describes it really,
Yeah.
really well.
Yeah. And it's often to do with that, like, oh, this is how I need to show up in this scenario. And it's like your body knows that that's what's needed there.
Yeah. I think for this particular animal in mind, it's more because I have such a reverence for the animal. So
yeah.
There just isn't the big emotion around it.
And that's a part of the neutrality piece too that you've been working with for a while. Like, give yourself a pat on the back. It actually means that you've been doing your work and you're able to get that big picture view, which is really what neutrality is all about, right? You can see the whole piece of how everything's falling together. And yeah, it's a really good place to be. Animals do have their own like path, and sometimes it shows up in very weird ways. And when we can sort of step back, we can see the whole picture of what's going on. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Thanks.
Cool. I hope I see you.
So yeah, hopefully. I'm not sure if I'm going to be in Perth when you come, but we'll see.
Darn it. Aw. Thanks for the question. Cool. Anybody else have a question?
I have a question. Not sure if you can hear me. Can you hear me?
If you turn yourself up just a tad.
Is that any better?
That's better. Yeah.
All right. I did the animal communication through someone else, and
Yep.
I'm having trouble getting any animals to acknowledge pain. Is that something you can do?
We just had a moment there. Acknowledge pain, and would love, if you can unpack that a little bit. So in terms of discomfort in their body.
Yeah, even knowing one of the dogs that I have spoken to has had hip dysplasia.
Okay, yeah.
He's like, no, that it doesn't hurt. I'm thinking he's just used to that pain and he doesn't know any different from it.
Yeah, that can totally happen in animals. I some that I'm like, oh, they must experience pain, and yet sometimes for them it's sometimes with hip dysplasia they can have, I've found they can experience it more as like a numbness, or like they almost don't have sensation in that region. So it's different than pain. So you could ask maybe more about sensation.
Okay, that's
so hone in, just get a bit more specific around sensation. Is it numbness? Is it tingling? Is there, you know what I mean?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so that might help to get a bit of more specificity on what they're experiencing, because usually there's something going on, but they may not, like you say, they may not be relating to it as pain, particularly if they're quite used to it. Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right.
Yeah, for sure. That's a great question. Thank you. Yeah. Awesome. Anybody else have any questions? You can take a couple more.
You've got one in the chat window, Alexa.
Do I? Julie. No, I was going to talk about that, Julie. Thank you. Get me back on track. No, you could just have taken one course. So for the people in the Perth class, there is a discount if you've taken any courses in Laura's program. So module 1 through whatever. And also if you've been a part of my whole horse apprenticeship as well. And that includes if you want to join this year. So if you've been planning on joining this year, the apprenticeship, then you'll get that discount as well. Have to let me know. Okay. Yeah, great question. Thank you, Julie. Yeah. Anybody else? We probably have room for a couple more questions.
So follow up on the last one is where would I find information on the Perth one?
Oh yeah, I will. What I will do is everybody. What I'll do actually to make it really, really easy is I will send out the information on the workshops in an email to all the webinar registrants, and then it's just like easy to find. Does that work?
That works. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Taisha. You're so on it. Woohoo! So Taisha has also posted the information in the chat box as well. Yay. I was going to go try to find that, and then it seemed like too big a task. All right, room for one more question. Anybody?
So Alexa, it's Kate.
Hi, Kate.
Hi. I'm sorry, I came in a bit late on the
no,
webinar
it's
because
fine. Yeah.
it just didn't. The link wasn't working for me, and anyway.
Shit.
But I'm here.
Yes.
My question is around, because I know you've got Laura's students and your students that you've worked with before over in Perth, and obviously we're a new group in Canberra.
Yeah.
What's going to be the difference between the course that you're teaching in Perth to the one that we're doing in Canberra?
Great question. Yep. Yeah. Well, there's going to be some similarities for sure. So for anybody that doesn't know, the Canberra course that I'm teaching is called Energy and Equus, and Kate and I have sort of come up with a bit of a format there that seems to suit all the very lovely people out there, and I'm so excited Kate's the coordinator for that course. So that course, we're going to go more deeply into the energy work. I'm going to be giving essential balancer techniques that we can actually plug into the applied kinesiology work and we're going to have a chance to get a bit more into like specific tools that we can use. And then we're also going to do quite a bit of applied kinesiology as well. So I'll probably, my thoughts that I'm going to separate that out over the 2 days to give it a little bit more room to sink in. Rather than in the Perth course, it's a 1-day intensive. So we're just doing applied kinesiology from beginning to end for the whole day and really diving deep into that. So yeah, is that
okay? That's awesome. I've just had a lot of which is quite interesting because there are a few people who are attending who I was quite surprised were interested in the work.
Yeah.
And which is really exciting that people are from other areas, more science backgrounds, are getting more interested in this sort of, or and they've volunteered their skepticism, which is really great. Yeah, I know, it's really awesome to have them. But they really have. It seems to be a group that's quite interested in the animal communication side of things.
Yep.
So will we still be touching on and doing some of those sorts of exercises?
Doing lots of that. And I actually call my course Kinetic Communication because I think of applied kinesiology as a one avenue for communicating with animals. So and then we'll be expanding that as well into some other work that we can do to get those open-ended questions and things as well. So yeah,
okay, wonderful.
Lots of that. Don't you worry, for sure. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks so much, Kate. Kate's been the most amazing coordinator. I'm so grateful for her inviting me out to Canberra. It's my first time on the East Coast, so I'm pretty excited. And just to finish up here, Julie, yes, if you register at the link there, you can also pay on the day in Australian dollars as well, if that works better for you for the Perth course. So just make sure that I know that you're coming and that I make sure I have all the materials and things ready for you. Okay. I think that will be good. Any last questions before we finish? Yeah.
Hello.
Okay, Sophia. Hi.
Oh, sorry.
Oh. Perfect.
Wrong.
Any last questions? No? Okay. Awesome. If you have any questions, you can always get me Alexa at alexalinton.com. And you can message me there at any point if you have questions about either courses or what's coming up here in Canada in the spring. I hope to get some dates ready for that soon. I'm looking forward to seeing some of you in Australia not very long. So yeah.
Alexa.
Yes, Kate.
It's sorry, I have one. Just, would you mind posting about that discount? Would you mind posting that in the Facebook group, just so that everyone can see that, and if they decide to do the whole horse apprenticeship?
Yeah. That one is just for the Perth class at this point.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. For Laura's students. So, but I can see what I can do. So
no, that's fine. I just it would just be nice if it was for them that they saw it coming from you.
Absolutely, for sure.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, everybody. I'm going to let you go in respect of your time, but thank you so much for coming on tonight. It was really wonderful to have you all, and I will be sending out the replay hopefully very soon, and I hope to see you all coming up here in February. Yeah. All right.
Thanks, Alexa.
You're welcome. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Have a great day. Okay. Bye.